The only MauLer content I've ever interacted with is when he's been on Destiny's stream. So, yeah. Alright, I'm excited. Let's see what he says about us. How can he possibly go on for 30 minutes about it? But let's see.
Airing recently. The first 4 episodes were a clusterfuck of abysmal writing, with the primary
Okay, already I disagree. They were perfectly fine, okay.
disaster being a complete lack of anything close to effective characterization for the main cast. I struggle to know just who the fuck any of these cardboard cutouts are or why I should care, and that's from the parts of the show where something happens, a whopping 5%. It doesn't help that the actresses playing this collection of corrugated statues on wheels feel the need to resist emoting as though the survival of Disney's stock prices depend on it, but here we are.
The issue with this starting a video like this is that you're purely... like, you're assuming your audience agrees with you. Like, if they agree with you, which I imagine most of his audience does, they're going to be like, hell yeah, MauLer, yeah, but tell the truth, you know, spit facts or whatever. If someone disagrees with you, they're going to think you're incredibly cringe and biased and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff, and they're going to either stop this or just think less of you, I guess. Like, this is it's an interesting way to start off this video by saying, obviously it's bad, because I don't like it or whatever. Yeah, it's weird.
The episode where Ahsoka is lost in the world between worlds. A convergence of events looking to intertwine all aspects of the Force, her history, and the relationships both past and present. All of this because the only character I give a fuck about booped her off a cliff. Ahsoka Tano will...
I wonder why he likes Baylan so much. I assume it's because he would say that he has more characterization. But I suppose you could also say that what's her name? The Night Sister, I don't even know what her name is, but she probably has just as much characterization, right? Like, we know she's a Night Sister. We've seen her in Mandalorian. We know that she works for Thrawn. We know that she's trying to... No, you know what? In fairness, I don't think she is well characterized. Now that I'm trying to actually characterize her, I can't characterize her. That's fair enough. Okay, I think he's convinced me.
Finally have to face her old master once again. She will complete her training and come to understand there is quite the journey ahead.
You look the same.
You look old.
Well,
But then, wait, now I'm trying to think of how would I characterize Baylan to make him... like, could I also characterize him? I suppose I would say... I know facts about him, like I just listed for Morgan Elsbeth or whatever. The facts I would know for his case would be he used to be a Jedi. Now he has an apprentice. He has a red-ish lightsaber. He's killed some people. He seems to be working for Thrawn. But in terms of characterization, if I discount what I found out in the latest episode, what would I know about him? I guess I would say that there's a few small scenes. For instance, the scene where Morgan is basically telling him, oh, we'll have to kill her or something, and he's like, it's a shame or something. I guess that's a very small bit of characterization. There's a few small things like that throughout the season that I guess characterize Baylan more so than any of the other characters, probably. Maybe the only, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe the only comparable character in terms of characterization purely from the show's perspective would be Huyang, because he's pretty well characterized, I guess you could say. Like, he has a nice personality, you know. He seems sad when Sabine and Ahsoka arguing. He wants them to get together because of his history of like working at the Jedi Temple and seeing what became of the Jedi in the end. He probably has just as much, if not more, characterization than Baylan, and maybe more screen time than Baylan as well. I wonder if he'll talk about that. I doubt it. It's probably all about Ahsoka anyway. I don't know what my rant is anyway. Yeah, I'm agreeing with him. Then he takes a jab at Ryan Johnson. Then I remember he's dumb. Yeah, I can imagine this is probably a sequel hater like most critics are. Baylan is cool and intriguing, but like half of this series is mystery box stuff. True, but mystery box stuff is fun.
happens.
Okay, so if you don't know, Dave Filoni writes dialogue about as well as Ryan Johnson writes whodunits.
It's just dumb.
So as much as this shit clunks
Oh, he doesn't like Knives Out. Okay.
harder than adamantium anal beads, we're going to try and work through to the point this episode has to make.
It means you still have a chance
Chance.
to live.
So Ahsoka is here, and she's dying. Interesting, since all three characters I've been referencing are essentially comatose in their respective stories.
Live or die.
We are then treated to witnessing a great battle in the Clone Wars. I was able to figure this out because of the incredible visuals, not at all because of the zombie pisshat dialogue.
This is the Clone Wars!
Anakin tells Ahsoka that as a leader she will have to make decisions that bring about people's deaths, and that to win the war you have to be a soldier.
Is that all I'll have to teach my own Padawan one day?
So, Ahsoka is sad that death is a common part of the Jedi, or soldier, or warrior experience. Doesn't it suck that the fate of her Padawan is violence and death? Perhaps it's worth throwing in the towel instead. Strange that she would have this perspective when this is adult Ahsoka reliving child Ahsoka's memory, meaning she is a person who has completed many campaigns being motivated to save people's lives. She's not actually young nor inexperienced, because
Is that an interesting point or a dumb point? Let me think. I think you could. I mean, I don't think that really. I don't. What I'm thinking of is that if you're, firstly, none of this episode works for me at all in terms of the framing. So I agree with him in the macro scale. But what I'm thinking is that if she is meant to be someone who's been struggling a lot with her identity and her relationship to Anakin, then at this point she would be questioning all of her choices throughout all the wars she's like partaken in. And even if she thought back then that she had resolved herself to be like, we're doing this for the greater good, now that she's questioning her part in it all, then this would be the perfect time to revert to a child and question everything again, right? Like start from the beginning and try and frame the past events as like with your new perspective, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm just missing what he said, but I feel like that's a pretty dumb point, I guess is what the conclusion I've come to. But that's assuming that the framing works here. My criticism of this episode is more so that I didn't feel that Ahsoka was struggling at all coming into this episode. So now that she's suddenly struggling, it's just like, what is she struggling about? Like, why is she struggling? I don't understand. If anything, at this point, to me, she was already on a path to healing because she was mending her relationship with Sabine, who she had closed herself off from. So there was nothing to trigger this kind of necessary self-reflection or whatever. But wait, let me go back. Maybe I missed what he said. Let's see.
That all I'll have to teach my own Padawan one day.
So, Ahsoka is sad that death is a
Actually, let me slow it down a bit as well. Oh, that sped it up. Wait.
common part of the Jedi or soldier or warrior experience. Doesn't it suck that the fate of a Padawan is violence and death? Perhaps it's worth throwing in the towel instead. Strange that she would have this perspective when this is adult Ahsoka reliving child Ahsoka's memory, meaning she is a person who has completed many campaigns being motivated to save people's lives. She's not actually young nor inexperienced, because that is the point of the world between worlds, right? Soldiers dying and killing enemies in favor of preventing mass death is a pretty straightforward concept that I figure she understood and valued. Teaching a Padawan to engage in a life like that could be considered quite the positive thing. They may prevent mass suffering, something I figure she knew.
I'm teaching you how to lead.
Well, that's exactly what I said. She knew it, but now she's starting to question everything that's come before because she's been associated with Vader now. Isn't that the whole point of this? Like, I don't agree that it should be done here in this season, but I thought that was the whole point of this episode. Unless I missed
How to survive. You do that, you're...
Let's see. Balin is intriguing. Ari, you're insane for thinking Luke looks better than Anakin. Luke absolutely looks better than Anakin. Anakin, I mean, firstly, discounting the episode 4 ending bit, he looked pretty bad. He looked okay there. He looked pretty bad is what I would say compared to this episode. This episode, I thought Anakin looked great. But to me, in my opinion, I can tell that he's, to me, it doesn't look perfectly like Anakin from Revenge of the Sith. It looks close enough where I'm like, this is crazy to watch. Like, I love it. And I love Anakin's scenes in this episode were just the greatest thing in all of Ahsoka. And all of like a lot of recent Star Wars. But Luke just, to me, and maybe it's because I haven't seen the original trilogy in a while, he just looks identical to Luke from what I remember in my mind. When I see that character on screen, I'm like, this is just Luke. Like, it's literally just, they just pulled him out of the original trilogy and he's here on screen. I couldn't believe it. Now, there are some issues there, obviously, compared to this, where we never see Luke talk. Like, we never see his mouth move. We have to cut away from it every time because, obviously, the syncing up of the mouth with the audio, it's tough to do. And when you notice that, it can take you out of it, I guess. But just seeing the visual of Luke compared to the visual of Anakin, it's to me, it's obvious that the visual of Luke is far superior. The one exception you could make is in season 2 of Mandalorian right at the end. Luke doesn't look quite as good as he does in the Book of Boba Fett. Fair enough, yeah. But either way, I much prefer Luke. But I think Anakin still looks great. It's so cringe that in the latest episode, she acts exactly the same as before her encounter with Anakin. That was also what I was... Yeah, I don't remember if I discussed this with you or with my friend. But... So yeah, the idea was that, okay, now she's gone through her journey. She's like becoming she's embracing her happy side, you know, embracing her emotions. She hugs whatever green hair little guy. She's being happier or whatever. And then we open this next episode, episode 6, I think, the latest one. And she's like sad and she doesn't want to talk about like to Hu Yang about the tales of the galaxy or something, and it's like, oh, I guess she is still sad and like she hasn't really gotten over it. It felt like like watching this latest episode makes it feel like last week's episode was completely unnecessary. So I don't know.
I'm going
Anyway,
to have to fight.
What if I want
let's
to
go
In a
back.
life like that could be considered quite...
Yeah, anyway, so far I've disagreed with his first point here. Unless I feel like I must be missing something because it seems like such a dumb point that that I've missed something. But I've said my criticism.
positive thing. They may prevent mass suffering, something I figure she knew.
I'm teaching you how to lead, how to survive.
Okay, okay. This is gonna be a long video, isn't it? In fairness, I think what he might be saying, now that I'm seeing it in context again, is that he thinks that Ahsoka didn't need to deal with any of this because there was nothing showing that she was struggling with this, which is the point I agree with. So I think that's what he's actually saying, all right? I think I just missed the point, but I just figured it out.
Do that, you're going to have to fight.
What if
God, I'm bad at reacting to videos.
I want to stop fighting?
And you'll die.
If you don't fight, you die. Seemingly a very weak version of similar stories considering how little there is to prompt this. I had no clue Ahsoka was giving up. Where was any of this in the previous episodes, and why was this prompted by Balin talking about death and destruction?
All right, there we go.
Those lines are repeated in the previously on.
Your legacy, like your master's, was one of death and destruction.
She apparently took that criticism so seriously she's now contemplating suicide in the form of simply giving up. I doubt anything we've heard from Anakin so far is new to her, nor would it be anything that would encourage her to live or die in this scenario, but then I have no idea why she would want to die.
It was my fault. They were following my orders. I got them killed.
This is war, Ahsoka. As Jedi, it's our job to lead.
Ahsoka is apparently having a crisis in which she thinks all she seems to do is add to a path of destruction and death, likely fueled by her tutelage from Anakin, being Darth Vader. Perhaps that is her future too, so why not give up? Something we've had no priors for in her own show whatsoever. And let's be honest, Ahsoka should know every detail about Anakin's much more recent actions from Luke. She did meet him, and she was obviously very invested in her former master's impact on ending the war. Yeah, remember this? Anyone? That was a wasted fucking scene. Ahsoka should know about Anakin's sacrifice, his values beyond that of the twisted machine, and she knew him beforehand. She's currently trying to save the galaxy, and by extension her Padawan and close friend, only she lost a fight to this literal who. She knows this guy about as well as the audience does. Still the best character though. I have no clue why now of all times would have her reaching an existential crisis regarding her place in the world and her legacy as a destructive force when she's pretty much been a paragon in everything we've seen of her. She's more motivated now than ever to do the right thing. She is on the cusp of preventing the reignition of the Empire, and she's concerned about her actions leading to death. Her inaction will lead to way more death, as well as the danger of herself and her close friends. You can't just drop this arc on her out of nothing, and you certainly can't do it with about 4 sentences. But this is where it gets complicated. Nobody is agreeing on what the fuck Anakin's lesson even is, especially
That's true.
between those who love the episode. I've read their interpretations. It's the equivalent of a blender of Star Wars flavored cope. Don't die, live is the takeaway, but many are digging a hell of a lot deeper because Filoni has left this incredibly confusing and vague. People speculate that Ahsoka feels responsible for the deaths Anakin caused as she did not prevent his fall, meaning it
I feel like it has to be something to do with the fact that she was responsible for the rise of the Empire because of her part in the Clone Wars, who were orchestrated by Palpatine. Now she feels like she's going to be responsible for the rise of the Second Empire through Thrawn. So there's something going on there with the parallel is what, I don't know, that's what I'm thinking.
it's time she gives up. If she had such enormous concerns about these sorts of events and decisions, then why has she been such an active participant in this form of activity without hesitation for so long? Where has this attitude been? Not only are we now heavily writing for the writer to squeeze meaning into this anorexic script, it has nothing to do with why she wouldn't want to live, and it doesn't address what she would know about Anakin. Why in the fucking world would this be dealt with now as opposed to when she found out about Vader? Why wouldn't you wait to prompt this when she goes through something very similar? Leela believed she got a crew member killed. Buffy believed she failed her duty and killed her sister. That's why their journeys were prompted. Ahsoka believes what? That people get hurt in wars where she
It is, I'm like, it's so strange that the show is called Ahsoka. There is nothing, like it did not, you could call this Sabine. I feel like if this show was called Sabine, I'd be like, oh yeah, I guess it is a Sabine show, you know, she's like the main character. It's so weird that it's Ahsoka.
gives orders, that people will eventually get hurt if she doesn't give up, that she's responsible for the people Anakin killed, that she may become as destructive as Vader, that Sabine is simply fated to become as destructive and death-ridden as everyone else in this line of training. And what, this was prompted by falling off a cliff? Why are you showing me that she feels bad for the clones that died under her command as though that justifies her belief that she brings death everywhere she goes and thus should die herself? Are we not talking about the lives saved, the places liberated, or the good served? This was no mistake made based on her own flaws as a character. Does she have no understanding of the context of death? As far as I can tell, we're using clones because there's actually no other reference to force Ahsoka to have this arc. Nobody who died due to her own vices, flaws, or mistakes. And so this is nothing. There's nothing here for Ahsoka as a character to actually have to grapple with. She would never believe she is some destructive force or that she may become one if she continues to fight when she's the only one right now who can make the difference and help. I mean, fuck, she's Filoni's little Star Wars god. She is the bestest and brightest, most wonderful and good character. Nobody is convinced that she was going to take her own life because she brings death to the world. That's fucking retarded, especially when death is threatening the world and the people she loves. So why the fuck of all times would she be giving up now? Thrawn is on her doorstep. doorstep. Everyone she loves needs her, and she has no significant reason to think she would lose. There you go. That's why we're here. To see Anakin Skywalker crossing over into Vader.
True, and it was the best part, alright? I'm glad it exists, even if I completely agree with him that it makes no real sense and wasn't very well set up at all, and it didn't drive with me emotionally whatsoever. But goddamn was it worth it for seeing young Anakin again, like straight out of Revenge of the Sith, seeing him in the Clone Wars in his like episode 2 kind of, or not even, I guess between episode 2 and 3 in this like really cool outfit and stuff. God, it was all worth it, alright? Despite how dumb it is and everything. It being called Ahsoka has to be just because of marketing. Marvel and Star Wars would benefit from naming shows and movies after events instead of character names. Sure, yeah, I would agree. I was thinking about it today. I'm like, should you call this like Rebels or something? But they're not Rebels, so I guess you can't call it Rebels, like live action Rebels or something. Like, what would be a better name, I guess? Like the, because you can't spoil that Thrawn shows up. You can't spoil that Ezra is a big deal. You could really capture people's attention by calling it something like the name of this episode, like Far, Far Away or something like that. That could be interesting. I don't know.
Igniting a red light.
Or, I don't know. I guess this will all depend on where the last 2 episodes go, really. But
Saber looking evil, because that shit is awesome. That shit is Star Wars.
True, it is.
Or die. Incorrect.
Seriously, just have him say nothing at this point. It would be better. Jesus, what hell cringe is dribbling onto my screen?
Oh, he doesn't like it. That's really interesting.
Out of this fucking universe, you Vader-obsessed wannabe shitwits. It's the breathing, the red lightsaber, the fucking outfit, every goddamn time. You cannot tell a fucking story that doesn't revolve around the same 5 people in this piss stain of a universe. And why, on top of everything, must I watch these icons of Star Wars deliver the fucking dialogue equivalent of rotting clown semen?
Trying to die.
Fuck me, I guess they brought in Hayden Christensen not just for the member berries, but because they needed an expert in delivering emaciated, thudding, ass cream dialogue.
I choose to live.
He doesn't like the liar delivery? Jesus, alright. I thought that scene when he's like freaking out at Padme, I thought that was some of the best acted all of Star Wars.
Equivalent of rotting clown semen.
Trying to die.
Fuck me.
Like, I can understand the time to die or whatever.
Guess
the
they
liar?
Brought in Hayden Christensen not just for the member berries, but because they needed an expert in delivering emaciated, thudding, ass cream dialogue.
I choose to live.
Okay, so like she chooses to live, meaning that Ahsoka was considering choosing to die because her path is that of death and destruction, and Vader because making Anakin fight her. She's now choosing to live. She's going to fight to live where others failed, where her master went to the dark side or something. I don't know.
There's hope for you yet.
Then through some bullshit mechanics I'm not even going to bother talking about, she's fished out of drowning and
The mechanics are kind of ridiculous, isn't it? Jesus.
jumps into a whale and travels to Thrawn. This episode was simultaneously packed with worthless bullshit and crushed at the moments of anything meaningful trying to claw its way onto the screen. The time-wasting signature of Dave Filoni is alive and well. He takes incredible resources and lets them spill across the floor with no more purpose in delivery than a drunken octopus tossing darts at a board of emotional illusion, all in favor of telling a completely hollow piece of piss story that came out of nowhere just to go nowhere for the explicit seconds of fan service and distraction from just how little substance remains in this dilapidated prolapsing franchise that people have the balls to call genius in execution.
Hey, Filoni, you utter genius.
One of the best shots in Star Wars history. Argue with a wall. Hashtag Ahsoka. Hashtag Anakin. What if I want to stop fighting? Then you'll die. The Vader silhouette. I'm so unwell. Hashtag Ahsoka Tano. Hashtag Tano Tuesday. Hashtag Anakin Skywalker. If Dave Filoni could be nominated for any of his shots, it's this one. Hashtag Ahsoka. Hashtag Ahsoka spoilers. Someone pointed out how Anakin is surrounded by people and friends, and instead Vader is all alone.
What the fuck did you notice about the shots before noticing that?
I can't stop thinking about this scene. Hashtag Anakin. Hashtag Anakin Skywalker. Hashtag Darth Vader. Hashtag Ahsoka. Hashtag Ahsoka Tano. Hashtag Tano Tuesday. Hashtag Star Wars. Hashtag Ahsoka. Hashtag Ahsoka spoilers. That flicker between Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader.
This, I mean, it's funny or whatever, I guess. I don't know. I guess this criticism would apply to any fandom. Like even ones that I assume maybe he's not a member of any fandoms, but obviously, you know, whatever. It's obvious.
It's one of the smooth.
The Vader and Orange Ice stuff here is cringe unless Anakin has literally become the father of Mortis and represents the light and the dark. Well, that's what I assumed. I assume that's what it is. Like he's the chosen one. He's on this weird world between worlds things in his young form. I assume he's like something, some wise figure that understands everything is what I took it as. He really doesn't need to show 100 tweets. Yeah, no, I mean, you can. It's if it's funny or whatever. The issue is, firstly, in my case, I disagree with it because I thought it was actually really cool, which obviously triggers me when I see this. But also the fact that it's like not a Ahsoka criticism or anything, or even making fun of Ahsoka at all, because you can literally do this to any show, and there will be equally cringe fans for everything. It would have been funnier, I guess, to show TikToks, I guess, because they're like the Sigma edits of like Anakin doing stuff. I don't know. It'd be interesting. Secret, what at Ori Duck? I don't even know what that means. The Death Star is so liminal. Yeah, I guess. Especially the inside of it. I don't know.
cleanest, and sickest thing Star
I've learned the word liminal just from like exposure to the messages you've sent over the past like week.
Wars has ever done. Fire.
Have you seen editing before?
Oh, here we go. TikToks. Oh my
Have
God.
you seen anything before?
Nothing will never not make this terrifying. This is Darth Vader. Hashtag Star Wars. Hashtag Darth Vader. Hashtag Anakin. Hashtag Ahsoka. This is the Darth Vader
I mean,
Obi-Wan.
I agree with these people, right? This is cool stuff.
Denied Emperor Palpatine. Hashtag Anakin. Hashtag Anakin Skywalker. Hashtag Darth Vader.
I'm just trying to think. Like, obviously, I could imagine this being cringe. I assume you would think this is cringe if you've seen past Star Wars and you're like, okay, we've seen this before. Like, for instance, I wonder if when MauLer saw Rogue One, did he also think the Vader scene at the end was cringe? Or was that really cool because it was like the first time it was done and now it's been overused, which is what makes it cringe? Like, I wonder why he finds this cringe. And it would be interesting if he mentions it, but I don't know if he will.
Hashtag Ahsoka. Hashtag.
I mean, maybe he already did, like, just saying how it's some franchise cash grab. I don't know.
Ahsoka Tano. Hashtag Tano Tuesday. Hashtag Star Wars. Whoever thought to merge Anakin's regular voice with Vader's cyborg voice when saying, you lack conviction, deserves a raise. This was spine tingling. Hashtag Star Wars. Hashtag AHS.
Jesus Christ, how many
AKA.
are there?
This is probably the best shot I have ever seen in Star Wars.
What is so fucking good about it? Is it that he's a good man and that he's Anakin? But oh no, he's a bad man too. And there's
What's good about it is that it's cool.
Ahsoka sees him as both Anakin the master and the good man. But oh no, she sees him as Vader the bad man.
Dave Filoni needs to be kept on by Disney for life. Hashtag Ahsoka. Siege of Mandalore. Did not know you had this in you, Dave Filoni. Hashtag Ahsoka. Dave Filoni writing the script for episode 5 of hashtag Ahsoka. Hashtag Ahsoka Tano. Clearly Favreau and Filoni know how to include legacy characters in ways that actually serve the story and drive the plot forward. Folded hands, I trust them.
I do wonder what MauLer thought about the Luke thing. I thought that was also really cool.
To label these as fan service
Like in season 2 of Mandalorian.
is to miss the point of their role entirely. Hashtag Ahsoka. Hashtag Anakin Skywalker. Hashtag The Mandalorian. Hashtag Luke Skywalker. Wait, am I nude? We sure we don't want Dave Filoni to give us a Clone Wars movie. Loudly crying. Hashtag Ahsoka. Anakin and Ahsoka.
Jesus, there's so many. I can't believe this. Blind Wave calling the episode the best episode of anything ever is more cringe than any of this. Did they say that? I don't even remember that. I know Calvin. Oh wait, yeah, Calvin said that about like as soon as the episode finished or something. He's like, I think I just watched the best thing of anything I've ever seen. And I was like, oh Calvin, you impressionable young man. Yeah, it was interesting. What was I up to? Cringe shot. Yeah, I think you mean the coolest shot in all of Ahsoka. Oh, actually, it's definitely not. All the cool shots were in episode 6, honestly. Like when, God, the scale of Thrawn's ship, like when it's approaching. God, it's so cool. What a great episode. See why his videos are 5 hours long yet. Yeah, it's crazy. But he's popular. He's doing the right thing, right? 500,000 views. Fucking on the nose. Yep, on the nose is great. It's really cool. Remember when Calvin called Captain Marvel the best movie of all time in their review? No, I don't remember that. God, Calvin is the greatest, isn't he? God, I love whenever he's just like mid-reaction and he's like, he like obviously notices something and he like starts his sentence and then he just doesn't know how to finish it, so he just doesn't finish it. He's like, oh, isn't that when... And he'll just like sit there for like 2 minutes and can't think of it. I love it. Calvin's the greatest.
Ahsoka with Sith Eyes Fire Dave Filoni Cook. Okay, so it's agreed that episode 5 of Ahsoka is the best thing Disney has done with Star Wars, period, right? Like this was peak Star Wars.
Star Wars is fucked. If you skip this episode, Ahsoka simply needed to chase the bad guys inside a whale, which is fucking retarded in and of itself. Her existential crisis came from nothing and is resolved with ease in minutes. The idea that this is one of her most important character episodes and all of the context to understand it is apparently from countless seasons of other TV shows. That's absolutely embarrassing.
Hey, I've seen those countless seasons and I don't think it really helps.
Regardless, Ahsoka is and will be no different from before to after this event in how Rosario Dawson portrays her, because she has been portraying her as a dissatisfied brick in key emotional moments of this series already. Except now she's wearing white clothing because...
Were there emotional scenes in Ahsoka? I don't even
That's the only fucking thing they know how to do. This is peak Star Wars. Peak Star Wars is Dave Filoni discovering CGI smoke, a visual that can barely be accredited to him, before Jon Favreau, before Gareth Edwards, before, well... ain't it fucking depressing to know just how stale these ideas are? Anakin and the world between worlds annihilates what we understand to be his relationship with Luke and...
Like, does he not like it from a visual perspective? I thought the episode... Like, I can criticize the story, but I thought it visually looked really good.
Raises more questions than the fucking hyperspace kamikaze. Is this Anakin? Is this fragments of his life through time?
Like, look at this. Like, that's really cool.
I'm brought together to reach out to Ahsoka. Is this Ahsoka's vision of him? Is this a photocopy of him from a particular era? Is this a Force ghost? Is this a combination of the lot? You understand that the...
I do wonder if we'll get an answer to this, in the finale. I don't expect we will, but it would be interesting to get some sort of answer.
Meaning of everything coming from his end changes dramatically depending on the answer. Luke Skywalker should be incredibly relevant to this whole series, but for some reason we're pretending like this isn't a time where he would be most active in the...
I mean, he would be relevant, but the problem is the sequels and how how limited we are by them, which is the biggest shame of this Ahsoka show. And I hope they just stay in this other galaxy so that they don't have to worry about what happens in the sequels at all.
Universe, he would be hell-bent on stopping any Empire loyalist from resurrecting the regime and the war. He's not a worthless, titty-sucking hobo yet. There are countless coming events that Anakin needs to tell Ahsoka about. There are countless pieces of information that he could have given her. Hera should be fucking fired for getting 2 men killed while dragging a child into an active war zone on an unsanctioned, batshit crazy mission. Sabine
You could make the same argument about anything, a lot of things in Star Wars.
to be stripped of her armor and lightsaber before she facilitates the victory for the Empire once again in future by being a bratty fucking idiot. Also, she should have died like 17 times by now. And you know what? The worst of it is the plot. The show is almost entirely plot. Plot, fucking plot. What little character there is amounts to, I'm a general, fuck off. I'm confused, but I like Ezra, fuck off. And finally, I crossed my arms like in the cartoon, now drool for me. For fuck's sake. This video explored 3 episodes of television. Episodes where our main character is locked in an otherworldly state thinking about how her legacy...
Alright, yeah, whatever. She has forgiven herself. Yeah, but has she? I don't know. She seemed kind of sad the next episode. Hisoka? No, we're talking about Ahsoka Tano, the lead character in this Ahsoka show, even though she's not really the lead. And there was some characterization, but I don't think it landed very well. She has moved on from her fear. This guy is just a hater. Hey, I'm agreeing with a lot of what he's saying, all right? What's Luke got to do with it? Lamau. I imagine this is the... Yeah, I agree with that kind of thing. Luke doesn't have to be here. But these types of... I haven't seen another MauLer video, but I guess the type of sequel hater or whatever would just criticize anything to do with Luke. They'd be like, logically, shouldn't Luke be here? He ended the Empire, you know, he's the most powerful Jedi. Can't he stop this? Like, what's he doing at this point in time? Which is like a fair criticism, but like, come on. It is... We got other problems in the show besides that. Luke's off building his academy. Yeah, and this guy, I imagine this guy would say that's dumb because of the sequels, and I would probably agree generally. Luke, Han, and Leia being in the Filoni movie is gonna suck so much. Are they gonna be in the... Is that like confirmed? They're gonna be in the Filoni movie? I didn't know that. There's no way they're staying in this other galaxy. Just watch. The movie is gonna be a war between Thrawn and the New Republic. I really hope not. I hope they do stay in the galaxy. Like, there's so much... It is just such a big shame that the sequels, like, it just... I wish they made the show after the... Like, set after the sequels. It would have been so much better. But they have this chance. They're in the other galaxy. All the characters are heading there. You could do something interesting. I just hope they do something interesting. This guy just sits there watching Ahsoka. True. And thinking about all the things he can hate on. That is an I don't know. I don't know much about MauLer. I don't know. Like, I wonder if he is kind of a guy who will watch it and no matter what, he's going to hate it, or if there was a chance that he could like this show. I wonder what he thought about Andor, if he liked Andor or not. I don't know. I feel like he probably would have. Like, I feel like the criticisms he's making here are mostly valid. So I feel like he's not just a blind hater, but I don't know. Nah, it'll be the New Republic versus Thrawn. God, I hope not, because that's not going to be too interesting. We'll see. Cringe video. Yeah, true.
Is death. That she should simply give up, only to realize she is wrong, escaping that loop and fighting hard to get back to the world of the living. 2 episodes were from 2 of my favorite television shows of all time. Shows featuring characters that are essentially trapped within their own thoughts, feelings, memories, and flaws. They spend the runtime discovering more about their own lives, motivations, values, and interpersonal dynamics than the total character development on display in all seasons of all Star Wars TV shows put together. Outside of the good one, of course. The characters
okay, he does like Andor. Interesting.
Treated with great respect, and they each have realizations all ranging from intense horror, motivated senses of purpose and responsibility, all the way over to love and relief that will go on to change everything they understand about the world and themselves, prompted by incredibly dramatic events that will stick with them forever, regarding insecurities and flaws they've been dealing with since the beginning. They are absolute bangers of character exploration and share a very surprising amount in terms of structure and execution, despite the fact that we have here a supernatural horror drama and an animated comedy. And these are far from the only examples of writers who belt out absolute beasts of storytelling with this.
I wonder if he hasn't seen Doctor Who, because I feel like Heaven Sent would be something interesting to mention here. Like the Doctor's role in Clara's death and how he's coping with it on his own. That would be really interesting.
format. It's the impressive power of that craft. It's why we remember them. Ahsoka, much like mostly anything Disney produces these days, is a fucking blight on storytelling. It's dragging down every last aspect while using the very few easy elements it's familiar with to blind its audience as much as possible, to manipulate using nostalgia, and to dissuade anyone from noticing the hollow, desolate, creative, bleached bones of the storytelling beneath. It's pretending to be a story. It's incredible how much those who love the episode disagree as to what it's about, adding all kinds of content that absolutely wasn't there beyond an evil eye glance or glitchy fucking Vader visual. The episode plays at the idea of a woman who believes her legacy is death with no backing beyond her mentor having become Darth Vader. Other than that, there's nothing in the writing or the performances in the entire season leading up to it. A conflict that lacks foundation when she should know about Vader's lasting legacy. A conflict that lacks focus because unlike Buffy, she did not reach a moment of almost wanting a loved one to die to release her from responsibility. A conflict that cannot be less relevant when the universe hangs in the balance of Ahsoka being able to stop Thrawn. We play at the idea of her being on the cusp of death, of contemplating suicide because of her guilt and the desire to stop fighting in a world where she could cause so much destruction within. A conflict that lacks focus because unlike Leela, nobody has been killed thanks to her flaws. Only soldiers dying in a war to defend the world from tyranny. Something that requires far more contemplation and understanding for an audience than Rosario Dawson crossing her arms. But no, it's all about actually how her lineage stretches through all of the Jedi and that her legacy is to train the next one in Sabine. That's daunting.
They could do something really interesting. I don't think they will, but like I talked to Miller briefly about this, how there has been a lot of mention of fate and destiny and stuff in these last two episodes, and Baylan seems to be interested in breaking the cycle of I guess the destined cycle of like you have one team which is on top and then another team takes them down, is on top, and then the other team comes back and takes it on top or whatever, and he kind of wants to escape that kind of destiny, and here you've got Ahsoka who is trying to who is like from a long line of, what did they say, non-traditional Jedi or something, who is struggling with her own identity and her role in this conflict, where initially she was responsible for the rise of the Empire in her fighting of the Clone Wars. Now she might be responsible for Thrawn returning back because she found that map initially. There could be something to do with kind of destiny and like that cycle of like, I don't know how you can tie it all together, but there's something you could do here with Ahsoka's story and Baylan's story and wrapping up together. I don't know what it could be, but maybe there's something there. I don't know. No, it'll be the New Republic vs. Thrawn cringe video. What did that say? Pelayan? Who the hell is Pelayan? I want to Google that. Pelayan. I don't know who the hell this is. Pelayan? Am I meant to know who this is? I got no idea. Is waiting for Thrawn to get back and take over the Imperial Remnant. Yeah, I remember there was a scene from Mandalorian Season 3. There were a bunch of people there, right? Oh yeah, nothing led to her introspection other than having to fight someone who knows her master, was a Jedi Master, and being reunited with her Padawan, who also doesn't listen. Well, the problem is that she's previously had to face dealing with seeing Vader in person. Obviously, she fought him. So I feel like, if anything, she should have been struggling at that point and had this vision closer to that point. But now, what, 10, 15 years later or something, she's struggling with it now out of nowhere. It kind of seems that's the issue. And early on, he did bring up a point here about how she seems content with everything because she was already talking to Luke in the Book of Boba Fett about how Anakin, like, she... Essentially, she has a good relationship with Luke where she's telling him stories about Anakin and stuff. So it seems like she has really dealt with things internally, but now it's coming out of nowhere again where she has to struggle with it. I don't know. She was much younger. She's had time to reflect. Well, no, the thing I'm bringing up, I'm countering the idea that Baylan is what triggered this. I don't think Baylan would have triggered this because she's had to deal with much more of a emotionally stressful situation than Baylan just mentioning her master. So I don't know. Baylan just wanting to settle down and live a life in a galaxy with no conflict would be based. Yeah, that is something that I think would be really interesting. Yeah, because I went back and I did watch, I think, every single Baylan scene. I might have missed some, but it could all fit into a reading like that. It would be really interesting. But I'm leaning more towards it'll be some metaphysical thing about fate and how he'll, like, it'll tie into the world between worlds and the gods of Mortis and something. I don't know. But, yeah, we'll see.
considering the death and destruction that comes from training anyone this way, which is insane considering the dramatic and immense amount of good that Ahsoka has done as a result of her training that isn't even brought up. But no, it's about how Ahsoka wants to be close with Sabine and train her, only she fears a betrayal or a turn or abandonment, even though her switch to train Sabine happened in a couple of seconds with all the facial expression of a fucking mollusk. But no, it's about how she doesn't like to take risks. She'd rather destroy the star map and condemn Sabine to a life of wondering what if than take the chance at something better. What? She wanted to destroy it to prevent the bad guys from reaching Thrawn. If she wanted to destroy it in general, she would have done it in episode 1. The key to understanding the cope of the fans with this one is right here.
This isn't explicit. I know. But I think it's implied.
The episode does have some explicit bits, the summary of which would be, people die when I involve myself and I could fall in the same way my master did, I should stop fighting. Yeah, but you gotta fight or you die. Well then I choose to live and also not be a bad man like you were. And this was brought on by utterly invented horseshit. Interpretation 723 is that Ahsoka sees her life as that of within the shadow of Anakin Skywalker, and thus Darth Vader. Will she make his mistakes, and is it because of her lack of action that he fell? Anakin wants to teach her that she can move well beyond him and live her best life anew. Baptized in fire, free of concern that she would ever make his mistakes, blah blah blah. It's like people ignored everything that set this up and then they hyper-embellish what this actually was to compensate for their desire to love Star Wars.
It is interesting to see reactions like this. How do I express this? There are times when I love Blind Wave, okay? Blind Wave is a reaction channel where they react to things. Sometimes I look forward to their... I always generally look forward to their reactions a lot. But when I actually get to watch them, occasionally I have to skip over things. Because I'm like, their level of excitement doesn't match my level of excitement. I feel like, for instance, all these reactions we're seeing of these Vader shots here, where people are like seeing the Vader shot and they're freaking out and they're crying and they're like going crazy. That's like something where I would have to skip over the reaction. Because I'm like... is it really that emotional and big of a deal to you that you're like reacting like this? And it's like, I enjoy the reaction, but I just can't, like, it doesn't match my emotion when I was watching it. And I think the issue is that a lot of the reason that I watch reaction videos is that you want to relive that first watch experience. You want to reignite those emotions from when you first watched it. Like when I'm watching Your Name, I want to see them crying at the end because I'm like, man, I was crying at the end and I want to see that these people are doing the same and it's just fun to watch it. So when I don't cry out and scream like they do to these emotional scenes and I see them doing it, it's just like, oh boy, I don't want to see this. I don't know. Let's see. She's had time to reflect. Balin just wants to settle down. Yep. You gave Andor a 4 out of 5. Yeah, I stand by 4 out of 5, I think. Expect too much. True. It would be exciting if the Yuzon Vong, Grisk, or Abeloth, I've never heard of Abeloth or whatever, calling to him, but I don't know where that leaves his character and motivation. Going into the show before, actually way before, when the Filoni like universe or whatever got announced and it was going to be like leading up to these 3 movies or whatever, something like that, or just like it's got all culminate in one Dave Filoni movie, immediately I was like, oh my god, the Yuzon Vong, that could be really interesting. But now that I'm at the end of this show and they've got to this new galaxy and there's like Balin is like sensing these things and Thrawn is like leaving, is in a rush to leave really quickly and the Night Sisters want to go to the other galaxy, I feel like there's something, like I'm not that excited anymore about seeing the Yuzon Vong or anything like that. I feel like something metaphysical would be more interesting. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know where that leaves his character and motivation. Yeah. I have the exact same experience with watching Blind Wave. It's just too cringe watching the excitement over the cheapest things. Yeah, I think that is what it is. However, there is another thing, which is that when I was watching the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 reaction, maybe I talked about this in Digest, I don't remember, but seeing them like cry at certain points elicited the same kind of thing where I'm like, oh man, they're crying here, I didn't cry here, why are they so emotionally invested? I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going.
It's like people ignored it because of her lack of action that he fell. Anakin wants to teach her that she can move well beyond him and live her best life anew. Baptized in fire, free of concern that she would ever make his mistakes, blah blah blah. It's like people ignored everything that set this up and then they hyper embellish what this actually was to compensate for their desire to love Star Wars.
He Vadered!
That was a great reaction. He Vadered. Oh man.
Wow.
I need to watch more Grace stuff. I've hardly seen much of her.
To be in that content position with the wonderful franchise at all costs.
Good job, Dave.
Dave Filoni, yeah.
Wow. Well done, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave Filoni. You have my soul. Dave Filoni.
This also can get kind of cringe as well when they call out Dave Filoni at the end. Sometimes it's justified, sometimes it isn't. I don't know. Like, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't.
I'm not worthy.
Filoni should be thankful so many people are writing in all of the meat and weight of these scenes for him when there's little to no evidence of a deft hand in expression packaged with dialogue that would give the Asylum a run for their money. The reality is obvious. Ahsoka is not Buffy. She hasn't spent more than 5 years having everyone die around her, knowing her predecessors all die young and in combat, knowing that anyone she loves is doomed when spending any time anywhere near her, and to have the most precious thing in her life taken away despite every last effort to prevent it, prompting despair. Ahsoka is not Leela, a woman who made poor decisions in favor of her own pride that almost killed her crewmate, leading to contemplating suicide in order to dull the pain. Leela believed a permanent sleep would have her reach Fry once again after killing him, only to realize that waking up will take her right to him. Buffy believed she killed Dawn due to her actions, only to be brought out by knowing her inaction will create that outcome. Anakin simply said this dumb shit.
It means you still have a chance to live. Live? Or die. And you'll die. Trying to die. There's hope for you yet.
This is nothing. Ahsoka is a teenage storyteller's love of Star Wars as an IP come to vague life.
Is she younger?
I mean, that's obviously not true. I mean, maybe he's talking about the show. I actually, now that I think about it, he has to be. Because Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, I thought was really good. Like the final 4 episodes or whatever, focusing on her and her dealing with Order 66 and everything. And at the end where she's like, doesn't want to, or she's like with the clones, I guess, and at their graves and stuff. I thought that all that stuff was really great. And even seeing her in Tales of the Jedi, I thought was really cool. And good character stuff. But I can see if he's talking about the Ahsoka live-action TV show, then fair enough. But there obviously is far more to Ahsoka than being some, like, teenage fantasy about, like, Star Wars or whatever than what he's saying here.
It's young Ahsoka.
That's young Ahsoka.
Walking around in a clip show of everything we love to recognize.
This is the coolest thing I've ever witnessed in Star Wars.
Some of the best Star Wars content, period.
Are we gonna get Rex?
Okay, I have to say, if you got excited over the Rex thing, though, I kind of... I'm like, what are you... Like, we saw him. He kind of looked like Rex. He didn't sound like the Rex we know and love, which is fair enough, because it's like the live-action actor. And then he ran, and it looked really goofy, alright? So, if you got excited over the Rex thing, I'm like, well, alright, come on. Let's be real here.
A simple trick of the light, a stencil of a shadow of a stain of storytelling, nothing more. She is a Rubik's Cube with every color on every side, matching the shade of her oh so fucking special lightsabers. Turn and...
God, her lightsabers look so cool, though.
Twist your interpretation to your heart's content, and I'm sure you'll feel you've hit on something every time you reach a conclusion.
I'm here to finish your training.
Because you'd rather avoid admitting you enjoy this for the shallow and meaningless fucking key jangling it clearly is.
Oh, wait a minute! Rex, there he is!
Hashtag Ahsoka.
God, I need to watch more of her reactions, man.
Hashtag Ahsoka Spolios. Seeing Rex live action had me bawling. Wish we could have gotten to see Temuera's face in this episode, but I will take what I can get. Loudly crying yellow heart.
It had the voice and everything. It was wonderful.
I just love the way she says that. Just like her way of speaking and stuff. I don't know. She's great, man. I wonder how. You know what? I'll catch up on her lore one day. Maybe you're just emotionally blunted. That is certainly not true. I cry at every anime I watch. I almost cried watching the goddamn live action One Piece. All right. This guy hating on people for enjoying something is cringe. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, obviously. Like, he's making fun of these reaction videos, but I love reaction videos, so yeah, fair enough. But I mean, I know there's a large part of the internet that doesn't like this kind of, like, expression of fandom or whatever. Yeah, it's weird. Like, I guess it's valid for them to be so invested. There's a certain series where I get emotional at absolutely everything. Yeah, true. No evidence other than multiple well-loved shows. Yeah, I guess, yeah, true. I don't think the way he's talking, it makes it sound like he hasn't seen the Clone Wars, so I don't know. I think the problem leading into the Filoni movie is that there's no personal stakes I care about in any of the protagonists across all the series. It's just going to be another big battle like every movie. Let me think. Oh, okay, so we got a few characters. We got the Mandalorian and we've got Grogu. I feel like I could be made to care about that. Right now, I don't think I would care that much. I feel like we've kind of explored their journey quite a bit, and we're at like the end of it, kind of. But I could be made to care about those two characters somehow. We have the rest of the Mandalorians, Bo-Katan and all that. I don't care about them whatsoever. They're not going to be emotionally invested in whatever. Balin's obviously not going to be in it, but I feel like he could have been an interesting character to have there to be invested in his story. I guess what we need now is a new character whose story we're invested in, or story and character we are newly invested in. Like we need... when it came to the Clone Wars, Ahsoka was that character. A new character who we can enjoy her journey, we can be invested in her growth or whatever, and we can see her perspective of these events that we've heard so much about. I feel like we need a new character like that in this Mandoverse, whatever, Dave Filoni-verse. I feel like at some point the Mandalorian and Grogu were that, but now with years and years of that story, I feel like we've got to the end and they're no longer that. And maybe they're trying to set up Sabine and Ahsoka and like these new cast of characters to be those, and I don't think it's gonna succeed. One potential character we could be invested in, or at least I could be, is Ezra. Potentially. Like, he was interesting. It felt like he never really got to the end of a character arc or anything. It was an interesting end to his story in Rebels. But I feel like he has a lot that he could still evolve to become. I really like this performance in the latest episode. So I feel like Ezra is a potential character that I could be invested in some like upcoming movie. That could be interesting. But other than that, yeah, I guess I kind of agree. Okay. Yes, but not even hating on reactions. He seems to just hate people enjoying it. Yeah, I mean, he's been doing it throughout this whole thing. Yeah, I disagree with that aspect, of course. Also, I don't get people being like, oh my god, it's Rex, Ezra, etc. It's a completely different actor than we know. I can't connect the dots between the series. Thrawn works so well with the same voice. Yeah, it is. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For me, which I'll talk about in my digest, and I think I've said it before, seeing Clancy Brown in that first episode was like, oh my god, I can't believe it's that guy from Rebels, who I don't even recognize his name or whatever, but it was like an amazing moment where I'm like, oh my god, it's literally the same character. And I guess it is like a similar situation to Thrawn, because it is the same voice actor, and it's like you're showing it in the live action. I think I had the exact same reaction to Ezra, honestly. Where when I saw Ezra at the end of this episode, I was like, oh my god, that is Ezra. And as far as I know, I don't think that's the same voice actor, or like the same guy who did the voice. But to me, it was like, maybe because Ezra was so young and now he's like grown up and he's got a beard and everything. But to me, Ezra worked perfectly, and I was very excited to see him. But I think I agree in every other case. I don't think I've ever, like, when I saw Hera, I didn't get excited. When I saw Sabine, I didn't get excited. When I saw Jason, I certainly didn't get excited, but a lot of people did for some reason. But Ezra, Thrawn absolutely worked. And what's the other character also? Ezra, Thrawn, and that random Clancy Brown guy, and Chopper, I guess. All those worked really well for me. Let's see, work with the same voice. If they saved Mando reuniting with Grogu for the movie, it would. Yeah, that would get you super invested. I agree. That was a big. That was crazy. I still can't believe they did that. That they resolved that entire conflict in another show that isn't in The Mandalorian. It's just wild. I can't believe it. I mean, it was great. I loved that Luke episode, but like, Jesus, crazy. Ezra or Cal? Cal, I have no idea. I haven't played the games. I feel like that'd be a tough thing to get invested in, but maybe. Like the sequel characters were all great for the first two movies and kept me invested, especially the Rey and Kylo relationship. True, very true. Yeah, goddamn. I remember, yeah, Rey was like, I was very invested in her early on. I think Ezra casting is great. I completely agree. I think Ezra's casting is the best of all the casting so far. Even better than Thrawn's, I think, but I love Thrawn's as well. Thrawn's first line sounding exactly like Rebels was such a great moment. Like no time has passed. That is so true. God, I think that is, it has to be my favorite scene in this show so far, is just Thrawn's entrance. Like seeing the fanatical fans chanting his name, all these like not battle hardened, but like survival hardened, like armor wearing stormtroopers, and it's like clearly they've been through a lot, and only through Thrawn have they survived. Seeing his like ship, and it's like patched up with the golden Night Sister kind of ore, and then slowly like they're chanting Thrawn. You see him from behind. He's like marching and stuff, and then you see him talk. Like you see him he walks in front of you and you hear him talk, and it's like the same voice as Rebels, and it's like, Jesus, like this is what the show has been building up to, and it succeeded. Like it's like Thrawn's entrance was as grand as I was hoping it would be, so I was very excited to see that. Anyway, they're reanimated. Yeah, I heard was it your theory? I think that they're reanimated Night Sister magic, kind of like remember that guy that was like a Inquisitor, but he was like reanimated in episodes 1, 2, 3, whatever. I don't know. I kind of I'm sure it's obviously it's possible, and maybe likely, but I find it more interesting if it is a group of stormtroopers who only managed to survive due to Thrawn, and it kind of in one aspect it gives him a very loyal group of people who are probably far more capable than the average stormtrooper because they've had to live through these harsh times. So when they do come to our galaxy eventually, he will have a great army with him, and also the fact that it just shows how capable Thrawn is, that he could, like, only through him were these people able to survive. These ordinary stormtroopers risen up to be more because of Thrawn himself. I think it would be much more interesting if they are just like soldiers who survived and not Night Sister magic, but we'll see. Like, it kind of, if they are undead soldiers created by the Night Sisters, it kind of feels like Thrawn hasn't earned anything. It feels like Thrawn's power in this like army that he has on his side was purely given to him because of the whims of fate, of these Night Sisters having these dreams that he would be important eventually. I feel like it's much more interesting if he earned his army and he kept them alive through his leadership and stuff. That would be much more interesting. I completely forgot. Oh, he's just bursting the reactors and stuff, right?
Red. That's red.
We should all demand
Oh my god, it's red, crazy.
something better. The journey in this episode totaled at about 3 minutes, cutting out the immense fucking filler. Beyond that, we had about 5 lines in total that are relevant to what kind of arc Ahsoka is supposed to be experiencing. Somehow, all of that is remembered as a great character study the second Filoni rolls out Vader. Darth fucking Vader. Because let's be honest, this cracked cacophony of surface-level character exploration was entirely forced upon Ahsoka in order to throw Anakin at the audience.
OMG, I'm not crying loudly, crying hard. Hashtag Ahsoka, hashtag Anakin Skywalker. I am not okay. This is everything. They did it. They really did it.
This was me, by the way. I was very excited to see Anakin.
Face holding back tears. Hashtag Ahsoka, hashtag Anakin Skywalker. Hashtag Ahsoka spoilers. This is everything loudly crying. I see Hayden watch the Clone Wars very carefully and I love him for that. Even the body language is the same. The way
I was gonna say I feel like there's a very low chance that Hayden has watched all the Clone Wars, but yeah, maybe, I don't know.
he looks, it's unbelievable. Just like 2005, just like in Rots. Anakin's face when he's proud of Ahsoka. Hashtag Ahsoka, hashtag the Clone Wars. Hashtag Anakin Skywalker. Mentally, I'm still here. Hello. Hashtag Ahsoka spoilers. Dash. He did the thing. Hashtag Anakin. The true Darth Vader. Hashtag Star Wars. Vader transitioning to Anakin was pure cinema one. Hashtag Ahsoka, hashtag Anakin Skywalker. The GOAT, hashtag Anakin.
Would anyone else not tell that his eyes were changing color? Maybe it's just me because I was watching on Firefox and like it only lets me see up to like 720p or something, but I could not tell. I don't know.
Skywalker hashtag.
And I have a really good monitor, like it's a 4K, like really HDR, like great monitor.
Ahsoka. Years ago, if you told me that one day we'd see Hayden Christensen return to play Darth Vader, but without his suit, wielding a red lightsaber and fighting his apprentice from the animated series, I'd call you crazy. Hashtag Star Wars. Then and now, hashtag the Clone Wars. Hashtag.
Jesus Christ, a lot of examples here. They're reanimated. The reanimated soldiers will come. It's what the cargo they're loading onto the ship is. Oh. Yeah, I guess, maybe. I enjoyed White Hair Girl. I'm assuming you're talking about the Sith, or not Sith, but like the red lightsaber girl with Balin. Yeah, I like her a lot. I had this idea that, what was my idea? The idea that, actually, you know what? I wrote it down for my media digest. Basically, it would be interesting to have a subversion where you think that Balin is going to be this wise old master who, because of his past experience, has now learned that fighting is futile. And basically, the end of this season will be like a Balin teaching a lesson to his young and crazy Padawan about how we don't need to do evil and kill things to survive. We can kind of do something. Basically, he ends on a positive message and she has to grow because of it. I think it would be really interesting to show that, to subvert it and have Balin be portrayed as this wise person, but in the end, his wisdom is not, or his experience with the Jedi didn't teach him anything. It chained him to this sort of mindset where he thinks that everything is a cycle and nothing can progress and we're all going to be the same. And through his young Padawan, she kind of is the one to reject that idea, and because if she becomes a better person by the end of this season or in future seasons or whatever, it shows that through the youth we can create a better world or whatever, like that One Piece live action thing I was talking about. It would be interesting to challenge his notion of cyclical fate through a Padawan who is currently bad but could become a better person if given the chance to change fate. I don't know. Something like that. I don't know. It could be an interesting subversion there. I read it in my digest thing in more succinct language, so I'll probably talk about it next month. This was my favorite episode of hers. Yeah, this was my favorite episode in general. Okay. This is so cringe. It's insane how much better episode 6 is than the rest. Yeah, I completely agree. It is crazy. Yeah, anyway. She might be a cool character in the movie. Yeah, I guess she could survive. True.
Ahsoka hashtag Anakin. OML like live action fucking Clone Wars ISCREAME.
How long does this go?
Also, I already tweeted about it, but live action
Alright,
Anakin in
we're
the Clone
almost
Wars
done.
outfit AHHH. Hashtag Ahsoka Tano hashtag Ahsoka hashtag Anakin hashtag Tano Tuesday. Breaking. Latest episode of Ahsoka reminds fans that The Clone Wars was a series they watched once.
It was supported more so by things you recognized than anything substantive to draw from her journey, and it was delivered with dialogue about as graceful and considered as a dead elephant trying to play fucking Jenga.
Tell me what's going on.
The battle's not over yet. There are more separatist droids approaching.
This is a Clone Wars.
Trying to die.
But who cares, right? These shitty stories don't do well critically or commercially, so eventually they'll have to write something good. I mean, imagine a Star Wars story about the concept of oppressive systems and their construction, destruction, and rippling effects that blur the line of admirable and dubious action. Perhaps this theoretical television series could show us what kinds of people are created and destroyed by those very systems. Yeah, they made that. It was called Andor, nobody saw it, and most of the people who gave it a shot thought it was boring. It's gonna get another season, if it's lucky to then be lost to the annals of...
Is that true? First, like, I don't know about the viewership numbers. Maybe it did fail, but did most people who watched it find it boring? That's interesting.
television history where no one will...
How would you even quantify that?
It again. And that's not to imply this was all fucked from the get-go. It could have worked. You could have written this to take inspiration from stories that have nailed this in the past. You could have tried to write a story. Like Leela in Futurama, Ahsoka could have been challenged on her skill by Balin and his commentary on Anakin and Ahsoka's legacy to the point of losing her patience and demanding a one-on-one combat. She could have denied Hu Yang and Sabine's advice to remain a team while taking their opponents on, instead ordering Sabine to take out Shin while Ahsoka shows Balin what a true warrior looks like, echoing Anakin from so long ago. Perhaps it seems that Ahsoka is winning her fight, and at the climax, Sabine loses hers to Shin. She gets her legs chopped off in a particularly brutal back and forth. This gives Shin the opportunity to join Balin and they defeat Ahsoka together, an inverted way to foreshadow the lesson.
That would have been really cool. Yeah.
And while giving Balin room to confirm this is all Ahsoka is. A curse on the world. Death is the only thing she has to give, and it's time she faces it herself. So he slashes her off the cliff, leaving her for dead. During her time in this ill-advised world between worlds thing, Anakin could explore the more obvious difficulty she's having in terms of what he and Ahsoka actually brought to the world when they were together, to then move into Ahsoka's insecurity on that topic being a weakness that has now gotten someone presumably killed. More than that, we could move into the line of masters and Padawans inevitably leading to more potential destruction.
Oh no, so just completely unrelated, but I just remembered that there's this like small storyline about Sabine struggling to use the Force, and I just realized there's going to be a moment where she uses the Force and all the reactors are going to cheer so loudly and they're going to be so excited that she's using the Force.
That Sabine could become the next wayward student inflicting their malice on the world because of their master's failure. Anakin could remind Ahsoka of the good they did in the Clone Wars, remind her of the events as they happened, show her that a hell of a lot more came from the line of masters and Padawans than Darth.
God, Anakin's lightsaber. God, the fight that Anakin is just so good with a lightsaber. I don't know if it's like Hayden Christensen or just seeing Anakin in like episode 3, like visuals. Just, God, the lightsaber fight in this episode was awesome.
For Vader, and even he made the right choice in the end. You could then take inspiration from Buffy. We can reach the core that Ahsoka is exhausted. She spent so much time fighting endless battles and figuring out what impact she'll have on the future that she feels immense guilt for the fact that she knew Sabine might die fighting Shin. And that, just for a moment, seemed like a relief. To relinquish the responsibility of training a Padawan, of continuing this line, of risking another Darth Vader. And then Anakin could give her every last lesson she would need. That Sabine has made mistakes, but she's not lost. The only way you lose her is to not get out there and fight for her, fight for the world. And that Ahsoka may have felt what she felt, thought what she thought, and made those mistakes, but no matter what a person does, there's always a pathway back. A person is not simply their mistakes. All of these lessons and introspections, of course, meaning a hell of a lot coming from a post-Return of the Jedi Anakin. However, as it stands, it doesn't seem clear that Ahsoka is all that much concerned about Sabine's fate in this episode at all. Most of the episode is confused, shallow, and absolutely meant to bait fans into a frenzy. Other than that, we had about 40% of the fucking episode devoted to Team Hera wandering about. But who cares?
that it did annoy me a little bit. She already went from force-choking Sabine to being somewhat concerned for her, I would assume. Kind of, I guess. It was very critically acclaimed and super high audience rating, so what is he on about? Yeah, I don't know. I really hope we don't see her using the Force. We will, but yeah, I agree with you. I hope we don't. Would be so much more interesting to have Sabine never use the Force, would be actually unique and new to have a Jedi with new powers. Yeah, I agree. I mean, but we already got that scene, the really cool episode in, Rebels, where Kanan was like teaching her how to wield the Darksaber as like a non-Force user. It's really cool. So why are we giving her the Force now? It's weird. Unless she's trained somehow, I really hope it's not an epiphany. Yeah, I guess we'll see. I sure would love to know why Sabine wants to be a Jedi in the first place. Yeah, I mean, we got that hint about how something Ahsoka wasn't there when her family died or something. Like, there's some backstory with Sabine, which I assume will be revealed probably next episode is the best time to do it. And that will relate to her wanting to be a Jedi? I don't know. It's a weird storyline. I'm not sure about it.
Skywalker and Ahsoka dueling. We had live-action Clone Wars. We had Darth Vader. And we had the world between worlds. We had Tamura Morrison's voice, the Clone Troopers. We had the Space Whales. We had
God, the Space Whales are awesome, though. How can he criticize the Space
battle.
Whales?
We had Rex, and we had Glup Shido. We had Darth Vader breathing. We had Anakin. You know, it was Vader, but it was Anakin. But he said Snips. He fucking said Snips. That's what he called her in the cartoon.
Hello, Snips. Hashtag Anakin Skywalker. Anakin Skywalker referencing his son Luke Skywalker to hashtag Ahsoka meant everything to me. Young Ahsoka heart. Hashtag Ahsoka hashtag Clone Wars hashtag the Clone Wars. Ahsoka's eyes change after stealing Anakin's saber in episode 5 of hashtag Ahsoka Tano. Hashtag Ahsoka spoilers. I love the LOTR reference where she is now cleansed and is now Ahsoka the White. Also love the baptism imagery to show how she's washing off her sins. Ahsoka the White heart. Hashtag Ahsoka. Am I the only one who wants a Darth Vader show? Hashtag Ahsoka. So Mike, are those prequels still the worst soulless cash grabs? It's full of nostalgia bait. You fat fuck. Hashtag Ahsoka part 5. Shadow Warrior is currently at a 9.5 rating on IMDb, making it one of the highest rated Star Wars episodes ever. Really should be 9.7.
That's a great point, actually. What do the episodes have IMDb? I feel like they'd be in the 8s, right? Like 8 point something? Jeez, it's not even 7.9, 8, 7.5, 8.8, 9.3. Jesus Christ. 8.5. This should be way higher. Anyway.
7 or higher. It's unreal how epic and great this show is. We won, man. Hashtag Ahsoka.
I found the sting because I was loving Futurama anyway. I found the weight of...
Alright, let's catch up. Fall of Mandalore. Well, it wasn't... I mean, maybe she was involved in that. I don't know. We still haven't seen that. Assumedly, Sabine was involved in that. Potentially, I don't know.
The world because I was loving Buffy anyway. My love for past work or IPs is what allows me to experience these stories. It got me to the point where I can consider what they mean to me and what they say about the people going through these journeys. They can help me recognize similar experiences in other characters, in other stories, or in people in real life. It's not enough for Leela to kick people while saying, hi-ya! It's not enough for Buffy to say,
I'm Buffy, the vampire slayer, and you are?
I need the structure, the foundation for substantive elements to actually fucking be there. It can't just be the goddamn jangling of tired, old keys rusted from the fucking tears of elated fans coming to realize this skin-walking calamity is not what they think it is.
But at least Anakin finally gets to save those he loves from death, like he always wanted.
Bitch, he already did that. And Ahsoka wasn't even remotely close to death. They're making that shit up as much as they made up the mechanics of this retarded fucking worlds between worlds shit too.
It is wild how she was actually close to death. Like, it doesn't... She just fell off a cliff, right? Like, it's crazy.
But there it was, Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, doing his thing, and everyone freaked out. Loved it, as much as I'm sure they'll love it weeks from now when it sours like the foul piss that it is. Just like the beloved appearance of Anakin and Vader in Kenobi, until everyone soured on that. Just like the beloved appearance of Cad Bane in Boba Fett, until everyone soured on that.
That was cool. People didn't like that.
It's like the beloved appearance of Luke Skywalker in the finale of Mandalorian Season 2, until everyone soured on that.
Did they?
Just like the... Just trace it, guys. Trace it all the way back to Patient Zero.
Chewie. We're home.
True, it's all the sequel's fault.
The beloved appearance of the very characters that gave you something meaningful once upon a time being used to regenerate that experience they absolutely did not fucking earn. Ill-suited stewards of a bygone era trying to convince you they're the same as those who gave them the franchises to burn. Countless pathetic iterations marred by an unyielding and prideful ignorance floundering at every turn to create something meaningful. There's no reason they can't do this forever. There's nothing but reward for the simplest and most surface-level mockery of what once was. When they can grip an entire fanbase by the balls with just the sounds of breathing, the colors of light, and a handful of lines, I think it becomes pretty obvious. Star Wars cannot grow up.
Is there more to this? Is that the end?
I would have preferred an entire episode of
Oh, hell yeah.
But also, I didn't really think they knew where they were going with it.
What were you upset about earlier?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Me neither, but this is amazing.
God, I love Grace. I think it's a name, right?
We were talking marriage aid earlier on, and who knows?
There's always...
That guy said yes.
Yeah, see, I knew this would happen, which is I give Thrawn, but it's like, as soon as you give them, it must be like if you have a child, you give them a toy, and they're like, yay, what else have you got? And it's like, no, play with Thrawn for a little bit.
Last for 30 seconds.
Yeah, you know.
Red. That's red.
Alright, that was a... I don't know. It was a fine video. Way too long. Obviously I agree with it. Like the bulk of it, I guess. It kind of felt like he was just venting to an audience that he knows exists. I guess I pointed that criticism out initially, where it's kind of like, if you agree with this point, you're going to like the video and think it's a good video. If you disagree with the point, you're not going to like the video and think he's like fighting straw men or something. I don't know. But I agreed with it, so I thought it was okay. Obviously the recap at the beginning was completely unnecessary. All the clips of like the reactions and tweets and stuff were way too long. The entire video could have been, I think, 6 minutes long. I could probably make a 6-minute long video and capture everything he talked about and probably make it more engaging. But I thought it was a decently fine video. Like I would probably watch another MauLer video as long as it's like maybe half an hour. You know, that'd be a better length, I think. I don't know. Shaw was a choice. Oh, there we go. Assumably Sabine was involved in that. Shaw was a choice to make Sabine so unlikable for the, entire show. Gonna be such a waste of time when we have, have the conflict next episode of Ezra finding out she helped free Thrawn. Yeah, I agree. That was very frustrating at the end of this episode where she doesn't say it. And I'm like, God, we're gonna have to do that next episode. He uses the word everyone inappropriately. Like he said, everyone didn't like Andor. Yeah, that's MauLer. Maybe Ezra will turn her away, and that'll make Sabine use the Force in rage and sadness. Maybe Ezra will turn her away. Yeah, it could be interesting. Maybe. I feel like the most likely scenario is that Ezra will find out that, or I guess she'll tell him or something that, or maybe he'll find out incidentally that Thrawn is back, and Thrawn is going to go back because of Sabine, and the expectation is that you think he'll be angry and all his sacrifice is undone, but he's been more Jedi-like than we expected, and he's matured and he's reflected, and he has a moment where he's like, Sabine, I understand your pain, thank you for coming for me, but we need to do something about this, or something. Maybe he'll be reasonable, and that will be the interesting growth of Ezra here. Alright, we did it. Star Wars. What a series. I am excited for the last 2 episodes of Ahsoka because there is potential for them to do something good. However, there is also potential for them to do something bad, so we'll see. God, remember when the idea of an Obi-Wan show was like first made?